What's up everybody, this is Ven bringing you another MOC Spotlight where we take apart what you build. For today's episode we'll be taking a look at Matriarch, created and posted to our message boards by Gringat. And as we get into the review, there are three fundamental qualities that I'll be focusing on: the overall appearance of the MOC, the build of the MOC itself, and the concept and ideas behind the MOC's creation. And I'll be forming a personal opinion on this MOC based on these three qualities in order to determine where this MOC excels and where it could use a bit of improvement, so let's get this started. Now, Matriarch here is a rather old MOC. It was created specifically for the 2012 Bio Cup, which was a Bionicle-based building contest hosted online on MOC pages back in, well, 2012. And it was only recently posted to our message boards, but I gotta say, for being an old MOC and possibly outdated to the builder, it still holds up. There's definitely a lot of older parts, primarily Bionicle parts, which makes sense given the context and also gives this MOC a sort of stylized design. In a way, it almost looks cyberpunk, just having all these different robotic looking parts and wires and cables kind of traveling from end to end. It almost kind of reminds me of what the Vex look like in Destiny, except Matriarch here has a much larger eyeball. On the merits of being a Bionicle MOC, I can understand that it's definitely difficult to maintain the same aesthetic throughout the MOC, but the builder did a great job keeping most of these textures consistent. All throughout the MOC there's some sort of silver armor piece with curves and a bit of indentations. Not too many pistons or other random unnecessary greebles you'd often find with Bionicle parts. Did I mention already how strange I find this design to be? Like, it's still cool, but it is kind of weird, and I'll get more into that a bit later. But first, let's talk about the build a little bit. Matriarch here is a primarily Technic-based build, utilizing a lot of Technic beams and long axles to connect everything together, while the Bionicle parts are primarily used for aesthetics. We do have a few CCBS elements put into this MOC, but honestly, I think it could use a little bit more of them, as it could give this MOC a smoother and more appealing look to it, as there are a few Bionicle parts that I feel just don't really mesh well with the rest of the MOC. Some examples being the Anika shoulder here on the kneecap ? And this thigh armor piece up here on the head. It would also help out by adding a bit more of consistency, because where there are CCBS elements, like right here in these tiny limbs, it looks a little jarring and out of style with the rest of the MOC. The actual build itself is quite passable. We have a very well articulated figure that looks to have great balance, thanks to the three legs. So really the only issues I could point out with this MOC would be purely cosmetic, and even in that regard they are very minor adjustments that I would make personally. And another thing I would probably add would be a bit more color, and I'm not saying this thing has to be a rainbow splash of Skittles juice, you know, taste the rainbow and drink it or whatever, but I think it's too monotonous for something that has so much going on with its design. From some angles it's a little hard to tell what I'm looking at exactly, and I think the introduction of a secondary color, or at least a lighter or darker shade of gray here and there, some sense of contrast would help this design a lot. Like, okay, let's take a look at the Gypsy Danger here. He's all gray now. So he's completely gray. Every part of him is the same shade of gray. But by adding a little bit of color, a little bit of contrast to this design, it becomes a lot easier to see some of the details, like these gold pistons in the thighs. You can easily make out the visor on the face. It's easier to distinguish what's supposed to be armor and what isn't. And don't get me wrong, the Jaeger without any color on it still looks cool, just as the Matriarch right now still looks pretty cool as it is. But the point that I'm trying to get across is that this sort of change would help the design a lot, especially considering how much more complex of a design it is than the Gypsy Danger. Now, while this is a pretty cool design, it also raises a couple of questions, such as, what exactly is this thing supposed to be? Does it actually have legs? Are those front two claw things supposed to be a set of legs? What's this thing on the back? Is that a leg? Is that a giant robotic tail that this thing balances on? Can it even move? Is it just stationary? Now sure, that's a lot of questions, but that's not a bad quality at all. If anything, it makes me a lot more interested in the MOC. It makes me want to look at this design more and maybe answer those questions myself. It makes me want to read up on whatever backstory or whatever context there is behind the MOC. And the best part about it is that this MOC in particular actually does carry a backstory to explain a lot of this. It is quite in depth of a description, and I feel like it would definitely be a disservice to try and condense it all, so I'd rather you guys go ahead and read up on it on the message boards. The link to the topic will be in the description, and then you'll be able to see just exactly how much thought was actually put into this MOC, which I think is very great and very much deserving of its own spotlight. So congratulations to you, Gringat. I definitely look forward to seeing what other MOCs you have in the backlog. I know it's been a while since you've posted, but that said, I do appreciate your contribution. And that also goes for the rest of you viewers. Please, if you haven't already, consider posting to our message boards at board.ctvchannel.com. Go to the LEGO Creations category, post your own LEGO creations, just get really creative with it, and just by doing so, you will have earned yourself a very high possibility of being featured on the MOC Spotlight sometime in the future. So, hopefully I'll be seeing you then. If not, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.